Yo, what is going on, guys? Got an interesting video here today that a lot of you have been sending me titled, Why Nice Guys See Bedroom Fun Workers, aka Night Workers. Now, this is a video done by a woman who apparently used to be a night worker. So we are going to be seeing what she has to say here. Let's jump right into it. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments, guys. It's always interesting to see what you gentlemen have to say down below on these sorts of things. Let's jump in.
And then you think that you're going to make it up by doing other activities. And yeah, that works for a while, but then a woman does definitely get bored with that because she wants to be penetrated by you. The nice guy gets trapped in romances that have reverted to friendship. They try to convince themselves that it's enough, and it's not. Hello and welcome to Sex, Love, and Soul. I'm Mary Knight and I'm really glad you're here. So today I'm going to address something. Some of you may be wondering, how do I know so much about nice guys? Yeah, sure, I'm a relationship coach. I'm a dating coach. I have been for the past 15 years.
Okay, let me just stop you there. Number one, relationship coach is absolutely hilarious. I see all of these women on TikTok everywhere, man. You know, they'll go out there, divorce their husbands, they'll be ex-night workers, or they'll be OnlyFans women, and then they'll try and sit there and say to you that they are now a relationship expert. Like, what in the hell is that? Now, I'm not 100% confirmed yet if this woman is a night worker, but I always do find this incredibly funny that women who giving relationship advice are absolutely not qualified to be giving it whatsoever. Also, the term quote-unquote nice guys, what women are really talking about here is just men who they didn't find attractive throughout their 20s, who they completely ditched. Let's keep going here.
I started as a relationship coach before I retired as a sex worker.
Guys, this cannot be real. Now I see why all of you have been sending me this. That's so funny. So this woman was a relationship coach but also a night worker. I'm assuming concurrently as well, so at the same time. That is peak comedy right there. That's like the equivalent of being homeless and giving financial advice.
If you haven't seen that in my About Me, I am a retired high-end escort, and I was also the madam of a really popular brothel in a big city in Texas.
Just by the way, sorry to keep pausing it, guys, but what the hell does a high-end night worker even mean in the first place? I mean, there's nothing high-end about this. You are selling yourself for money. I don't really understand this terminology, man. I really don't.
And most of the men who were clients, I would say like 98% of them, were nice guys. Yeah, shocker, right? These men thought that it was easier to just pay for companionship, pay for this intimacy, than to go out in the real world and continue to be eaten alive by women who were out there who were pretty much just after their money.
I mean, of course. Okay, you go out there and you ask, like genuinely guys, ask some of these divorced men how much money they have lost as a result of women. Just go and ask them. I guarantee you it's probably more than paying the night workers. Of course, it makes sense to me. Hell, even a lot of guys who have girlfriends, it's probably cheaper to hire a night worker than to have a girlfriend these days, especially with the level of entitlement that so many modern women have. You know, a lot of this stuff, now I'm not saying it's right, but I certainly understand why men do this. It's because they really, you know, there's nothing for them there in a lot of modern Western women. They use you for your resources. And even if the women don't use you for your resources, the problem is that they can, right? The problem is that, let's just say you get married to a woman or you have like a de facto relationship or whatever the hell, common law marriage as it's called in other places. I mean, you can lose a lot of money. And every woman has the ability to do this to you. So yeah, no wonder dudes are like, no, I'm not doing the relationship thing. You don't want me anyway. I'm just going to go hire night workers.
Or just in general, just tired of being disappointed and not getting what they wanted. And so they knew that if they saw an escort, they would get what they wanted. No fuss, no muss. I'm not saying that that was right. I'm not condoning that kind of behavior, but I'm also certainly not sitting here judging it. And it's an interesting thing that when I started as a coach, I was coaching women who were married, who were concerned about their husbands cheating. And I actually wrote a best-selling book, it's available on Amazon, called How to Keep Your Man Out of My Bed. It's teaching women why men cheat and how to prevent it from happening to them in an empowered way. Because the reasons that men cheat are not what most people think.
Now, let me just pause it here before we continue, okay? I am not saying that cheating is right either. I'm not one of these people who's like, yeah, man, you're a man, so you can cheat on a woman and it's okay. I personally, I'm not really for that. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care if you identify as an orange house cat, okay? I think cheating is cringe. So with that out of the way, why a lot of guys cheat is because, number one, they're trapped in marriages. And when I say trapped, I don't mean like the joking form of language that oftentimes women use. Oh, I'm trapped here. When really what it means is they can't leave because they have to pay their own bills now. I mean that oftentimes men are trapped in marriages or relationships also these days, thanks to common law marriage, because if they leave, they will lose everything. Oftentimes the kids, if they have any, but even just resources in general. You want to leave a marriage, all of a sudden $200,000 of yours is gone, or the equity that you have in your house is gone. Just like that, just gone. Okay, so dudes are oftentimes, they're in these marriages, they get no intimacy whatsoever, or these relationships. The woman's always too tired, he's paying the bills, she doesn't cook a damn thing. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it makes sense to me. Now, I'm not saying it's right, but, men get the very, very short end of the stick permanently. They cannot leave. So, of course, men go this, down this route. Let's keep going.
I started working for this escort service in Houston, and this was in the late 90s. She was like a mid-range madam, and then I learned, oh wow, I could be high-end, and so then I started working for another escort service in Houston that was a high-end escort service. And then I started having my own place, and then I became an international traveling companion. But I'm saying all this just to let you know my trajectory here of how this all went, was that I would learn that for many of these men, sex was just the excuse. Sex was the pretense for why they reached out. Now, of course, that was true of some men. Some men just really liked having sex.
They really craved that sexual variety, whether they were married or not. But most of the men were these really nice guys who were looking for someone to talk to. They were looking for companionship.
And that's where I really learned about orgasming and for men and women. But, for me, that's how I could actually have orgasms with my clients, was because I insisted that I stay in my own body. I wouldn't let myself float away. I would stay in the present moment. And the men could tell. And that's why I was popular and why I had so much repeat clientele, is because they really could feel that I was there with them. That's what I was teaching men to do, is to be in their body.
They were having this problem at home with a woman who had pulled away from them. And they did their old tried and true method of going right into their heads. So they were not in their bodies. But the thing was, this was not a head problem. This was not a problem that could be solved by thinking. The whole problem was caused because they were not in their bodies. And so
Okay, I mean, we're getting a little bit lost in the source here. Let me just skip ahead for a moment here. But the reason why dudes are doing this is, number one, it's cheaper than having a girlfriend and or wife. Number two, you know what you're going to get anyway. Like, a lot of women will just straight up lie to you and things like this. So when dudes go and purchase these services, they know that you don't care. None of the other women care anyway, but at least they don't have to deal with the nonsense. They know exactly what they're getting. You both go your separate ways, and it is what it is. So there's that. Then there's the dudes who are like married and in relationships and things like this, and the reason why they do it is because, they don't get any intimacy, and oftentimes they're trapped in these relationships or these marriages. I mean, it's pretty damn simple. I don't know. This woman's like, yeah, men just get into their heads and they're not in their bodies, which I understand to an extent. You know, men are quite logical. Oftentimes we do get trapped in our heads. But I mean, we're getting a little bit lost in the source here, I think. Let's continue with what she has to say.
Tantra. I don't really know. I mean, I know what that is, but I've never been that kind of sex person. That's not really, that's never really been my thing. But I know about it. But no, it wasn't Tantra. It was more about being in the present moment. It was, which I guess is Tantra, but it's about being in your body, being with the person that you're with, having the experience that you're having, whether it's awkward, whether it's hot, whether it's so-so, whatever. It's like you're just there when you're available for it. That's what we were doing in sexual situations. And I know a lot of people don't have that experience. It was perfect for me because I wasn't emotionally invested in these relationships that I was having with my clients. So I could be almost this impartial person there, right? I was there, I was available sexually, I was available a tiny bit emotionally, but I was definitely there intellectually for them too. And so
What is this intellectually talk, man? I mean, what even is this, okay? So yeah, of course the dudes know that you're not there mentally. You know, they're not seeing you to have a relationship. They're not seeing you to have a girlfriend. I mean, a lot of the people who are doing this, quite honestly, I would argue also trying to avoid those things. You know, not only have you got dudes who, for example, the women just overlook entirely, but I think even a good portion of those dudes who do get overlooked and treated like trash, I mean, they go to you and they know full well that you don't give a damn about them. Men, you know, men really do get pummeled with this ever since they're a young age. You know, you're like an 18-year-old dude. I don't know, you know, you're an 18-year-old guy. Maybe you haven't got a license or a car or something like this. You're going to feel it. You know, people treat you differently. People go, oh, this guy, he hasn't got nothing. He's got, you know, he's got nothing going for himself. He doesn't look particularly good. He clearly doesn't hit the gym. He doesn't have a license. He doesn't have a job. People will look at you and be like, hey, why should we care about you in the first place? Men understand that typically, even if they do go above and beyond and provide all of this crap to women, oftentimes men do understand that the women don't care about you anyway. I mean, there's a saying that goes around, which is that men, dogs and children and women or whatever it is are loved unconditionally, but a man is loved on the condition that he provides something. And so guys have said, you know what? If I'm only loved because I provide something, then I don't want the love anyway. What's the point in the whole quote unquote love thing?
it was easy for me to kind of stand back and study this and see them as not as this man that I was in love with and had all this judgment about and needed him to be a certain way. I could set that aside and just observe him as a man, observe him as this beautiful spiritual being, and have this experience with him and have some pretty, actually, very connected sex. Whatever you want to think about that. I know those of you who have seen sex workers, have experience with escorts, you know what I'm talking about. These experiences that you have with this person who is a quote-unquote stranger can be transcendent because there's not all the expectation, all those crazy emotions and judgments and, you know, all those things that we put on the people that we love.
I know.
I mean, to be honest with you guys, you know, as soon as people start talking about this transcendent and spiritual thing, I kind of get a little bit lost. I mean, at the end of the day, we're selling ourselves for money here, and we're trying to draw a correlation between that and spirituality. Now, me personally, I don't follow so much with this. If anything, I would consider it antithetical to spirituality to go out and do something like this. But, you know, again, I don't really have a horse in the race, just giving my thoughts here, but whenever a woman typically goes on about spirituality, unfortunately, it typically doesn't actually have the connotations that they think it does. You know, oh, I'm so spiritual. I've had spiritual experiences, says the night worker. Now, I'm not trying to roast this woman. I'm not trying to make fun of her. But I don't think that spirituality naturally, you know, exactly fits the context of what we're doing here.
voluntarily a sex worker. I, like everybody else, you get such a thrill and such a charge about the money, how easy it is, how nice the clients are, just how it's like, oh my God, I could just be myself and make money, and you get a big charge out of that. And then, you know, once the excitement, and, you know, of course, in the beginning, there's a little bit of terror involved there too, and a lot of adrenaline. And once you kind of get used to all of that and how bizarre what you're doing actually is, then you start to think, oh God, what am I doing? How can I do this? Why am I doing this? What kind of person am I? This sucks. This is horrible. And then if you decide to stick with it, then you move through that into the other side of that. This was like 3 months in, because I had seen this guy a couple of times and he was super boring. And so when I would, and he was one of these long appointments, and not long appointments because he wanted to do it a long time, but because he wanted to sit there and talk. And talk and talk. And it was always like all this really negative stuff. And he was just a super boring guy.
I find it weird that dudes would even do this in the first place. I have, you know, maybe when I was younger, I would probably understand just the yapping and the yapping. But as I've gotten older, guys, personally, I just want to talk to people less. I think a lot of guys are the same. You know, you start to get older, you start to get up in the digits, as it were. And, you know, stuff like this just sounds like it's just boring as hell to me. You know, I don't particularly like talking to a lot of people, man, and dudes are out here having these heart-to-hearts and all this kind of crap. I'm like, most men, I would think, understand that, number one, nobody really cares anyway. Number two, it's a waste of time. And that's pretty much it, right? I'm not one of these people who sees this and goes, wow, what a fantastic time this would be. You know, I can't wait to just sit there and talk to some individual for an hour that I don't know, you know?
And he was nice, but he was boring. And he was boring because he was negative, and he was boring because he wasn't present. He was just talking at me. And so I would be very checked out. Even during the conversation, I would try to latch onto something I thought was interesting and kind of like go, oh, hey, let's talk about this. But he would always bring it right back around to something horrible that had happened to him. And I don't know, guys, if y'all don't know this, women are not turned on by negative stories and negativity, and by you're being a sad sack and feeling sorry for yourself.
Oh, we know this. You know, this is what I'm talking about, man. We know, men understand this quite early on in life, I would say. People don't give a damn about your struggles, particularly women. There's a saying, once again, that women kind of, they hang out at the finish lines and they pick the winners, okay? They don't care. For example, let's just say you're a highly successful guy, right? You make, I don't know, millions of dollars a year. You're really up there, the top echelons, as it were. Women don't care about the logistics it took you to get there. They don't care about all the back end of your business systems, or, I don't know, your employee structure or whatever. They do not give a damn. They really don't, particularly if it's negative. You know, they just go, oh, cool, you've got the nice car, you've got the nice house. That's fine by me. That's all I need to know. People, women, men in general as well, they're not interested in hearing men's struggles. Now, I'm not here to make the argument that women should give a damn. Me personally, I don't care if they don't care. I mean, you know, go out there, do whatever it is you want. I don't particularly mind if these women care or don't care about my struggles. I'm not talking to them about my struggles anyway. But men understand this. We understand that negativity, you know, you say you've got a hard day. Women don't care if you've had a hard day, man. They really don't.
Negative stories and negativity, and by you're being a sad sack and feeling sorry for yourself. It's a big turnoff. When the time came for us to go into the bedroom, I would basically leave my body. And so this one time, I caught myself. I was like, where am I going? If I'm not here in my body, where am I? And why am I leaving my body behind with this stranger? It terrified me and it grossed me out.
I mean, the answer to that is, the reason why you quote-unquote left your body or checked out is because you're not attracted to the guy. And the reason why you're doing it in the first place is for money. I mean, it's really not that complicated. We're trying to draw all of these, like, esoteric meanings and all of this stuff. I mean, it's really simple. The men want intimacy because none of the women, either they're with a woman and he gets no intimacy whatsoever, or he's trapped in a relationship or whatever, or he just sees you because it's cheaper than going out there and dating quote unquote regular women. He wants the intimacy, you want the money. This is not some holy divine experience that you're having here, madam. It's really not that complicated. I've noticed that a lot of these relationship coaches and things like this, right? These TikTok dating coaches. I don't know if this woman's on TikTok. Maybe she has a TikTok account. That'd be quite funny. But they really like to overcomplicate this stuff. It's really not complicated at all.
And so as soon as I had that sensation of, oh my God, I'm in my head, I'm not in my body, I just went, boom, right into my body.
What?
And we had what I would classify as decent connected sex. It wasn't great, but I was there in my body, and I was able to be with him from one human being to another, instead of treating him like some kind of asshole that didn't deserve my time. I was like, wow, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be in the present moment. I'm going to be with this guy. That changed my life. And then that is why I'm able to speak with a lot of authority about, hey, y'all, get out of your head and into your body.
Right. So we're essentially, I don't know, are we making the case to women here that they should be more proactive with the intimacy? I mean, again, this is something that's not really going to happen again. Like, it's not going to happen. You try and convince women to be attracted to you. This is not something that works, okay? Men, I hope more and more men are understanding this these days, guys, but there is no convincing women to be attracted to you. They're either attracted to you or they're not, okay? Trying to convince these wives and these girlfriends who are not attracted to their boyfriends or husbands to be in their bodies, as it were, is not going to work. I mean, guys, we know the stories, okay? Oh, she's too tired, she's got a headache, she's got a stomach ache, she has to do such and such task in the morning. I mean, there will always be something, okay? So, of course, the solution to this, logically, would be, hey, the men need intimacy, give them intimacy. The problem is the women don't care, and the men end up checking out anyway. They realize that their wife doesn't love them, their girlfriend doesn't love them, not attracted to him whatsoever. But he typically can't leave in these situations.
And that's how I was able to teach women about being orgasmic, becoming orgasmic, by getting out of your head and being in your body. And you guys, that's the same thing. Men who are in their heads either cannot even get an erection. If you can, then you have a hard time maintaining it. And then you have no control over it. And then you think that you're going to make it up by doing other activities. And yeah, that works for a while, but then a woman does definitely get bored with that because she wants to be.
Okay, yeah.
Unless you are in your body, that can't happen. So there's a lot of benefits to being in your body. Right, and just beyond sexual, also just makes you a better partner, makes you a better person. Being in your body makes you, being in your body makes you a better father, a better brother, a better citizen of this planet. Anything that deals with other people, where they count on your presence, you will become a master at that. Yes, nice guys saw sex workers. Some of them were married and they weren't getting what they wanted at home, and they lacked the communication skills to talk to their wives and to express their needs to their wives.
Yes, the classic, guys. Men, we just need to learn to communicate. The problem here is that men are not communicating properly. Let me just say this. Men, it's really quite clear what men want. It is not complicated. A lot of women, they pretend like they don't understand this, and granted, a lot of them actually don't. But in the context of relationships, it's very obvious what men want. They want to be loved and appreciated, and they want intimacy. It's really not that difficult to understand. Really, they want someone who's, kind and pleasant to be around, who is going to build a home, for example. Okay, not like build a house, obviously, but be someone who's homely, be someone who's nice to be around, intimacy and respect. Not that damn difficult. Like, men want these things, of course they do. And men do communicate these things, but you know what happens when the men typically do, right? The dudes who are married and their wives aren't attracted to them, they get met with all of the different excuses. Like, let's be honest about this, okay? The wives and the girlfriends, they know what the men want. They're just not they're not attracted to the guy. Typically, they're with the guy because he represents some form of stability, typically financially. Okay, if she were to leave him, then her financial situation would be more difficult, hence why she's with him in the first place. Okay, so this isn't, I would argue, a men communication issue. Men communicate what they want, and even if they don't, it is very damn obvious what men want in relationships. Very, very, very damn obvious. But of course, these women like to turn it back on you and say that it is your inability to communicate. One more thing before we continue here as well. She mentions nice guys again. Again, nice guys is just a term for the men that women overlooked in their 20s, essentially. The dudes who they treated like trash, who they didn't find attractive, who now, when they approach 30 years of age, these men become the providers for these women. These men have a target on their backs because these women know that they can manipulate them and get them to provide financially for them. So these nice guys end up seeing these night workers, as it were.
Once I got comfortable with escorting and I was kind of seeing the same guys over and over and over again, we established a relationship, a friendship. And so I would ask them, hey, why are you here with me instead of at home with your wife? Like, what is going on? And they would tell me that it was because their wives had lost interest in them.
Wow, what a shocker. The wives were not interested in them. There was no intimacy at home. There was no love at home. There was no respect at home. Very, very simple stuff here. I told you this at the start of the video, man. It's really very simple, not complicated whatsoever.
For various reasons. And I always thought what everybody else thought, that, oh, well, men cheat because they get bored, they want variety, and, they want to have sex with a willing woman who's not their wife. And sure, that's an element of it, but it wasn't enough of a drive, right? Their desire to have sexual variety was not the driver. That was not the reason why they were contacting sex workers.
Yeah, the reason why women think this, by the way? Men just want the variety. They just want to see a lot of women, and that's why they cheat. You know why they think this? Is because this is what the chads do, right? This is what the dudes do, who they try and get relationships out of in their 20s. These guys literally have entire harems of women. They will see multiple women at the same time. And yeah, they probably find you boring. They've got all of these different kinds of options. And so what they do is they take that very small subset of men and they apply this logic to all men, right? All men cheat because they just want variety and they want to see a whole bunch of women. Granted, by the way, a lot of these women do not even have relationships with the top tier men who do this anyway, but they get that delusion. Also, I think a lot of it is also projection because women, to be honest, do this, right? Particularly if they've been with a lot of different guys, it is difficult for them to have one partner and settle down, quote unquote, with that guy. She's always going to be looking at her past relationships and past flings.
It was awesome to them that sex was available, but again, it wasn't the driver. It was the loneliness. It was the wanting a connection, to make a connection with a woman, because they weren't getting that at home. And a lot of times when at home, and this isn't about cheating, this is about nice guys and how nice guys can find themselves in this situation. What happens is that they were ashamed. And they were ashamed that their wives no longer found them desirable. They would feel abandoned, the men, and they would feel like there was something wrong with them. It's a cause of shame, a very deep source of shame for men to be.
Well, of course it is, right? Their wives have rejected them. Their girlfriends have rejected them. I mean, this is very, very simple, right? How embarrassing is it, walking out in public with your wife, for example, and she doesn't want any intimacy with you. I mean, it's just straight up embarrassing at that point. It really is. That's a huge part of these romantic relationships, and it's just thrown out the window. Why? Because the man is not attractive to the woman, because she is quote unquote settling now. You see, the problem here, guys, is women go out here and they marry dudes after they've been with 25 different men, lowballing it there in some cases, by the way. They'll go out there and they'll marry dudes when they're like 30, and they have, they think that they're settling now. They're not attracted to this guy. They're attracted to that guy that they hooked up with when they were like 23. And so their husband is not very attractive to them. So she denies intimacy from him. You know, really simple here. But guys, we're going to be leaving today's episode there. As always, remember to leave your thoughts and your comments. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you all in the next episode. Peace.